Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Our top story tonight, 4 all-star PoEsports teams, all competing to be the fastest to level 100. Joining me today is design specialist Raindog, and unfortunately our data analyst ZyTV is out with a cold. That's alright though, as Raindog and I will be doing a recap of the first 5 hours of the race. This is an exciting time as we get to look at the top 5 teams as well as commemorate a special wildcard team. Looking first at the teams, we have Team Method here with Zizarin, Havoc 616, Steel Mage, and Nugian currently being in first place. As we examine the team, we can see that Zizarin is the carry at level 75. He's an elementalist using Winter Orb, and he currently holds the tabula that the team farmed up in Blood Aqueducts. Havoc 616 is trailing just behind at level 72, using Stormbrand on a 4-link as an Inquisitor. And now they've gone for an interesting lineup, as the other two are both Inquisitors as well, at level 69 and 68, both using Stormbrand in addition to that. They completed Act 10 in 3 hours and 11 minutes. They currently reside in Tier 4 maps and above, permanently sustaining them. They have 2 out of 6 of their Uber Lab trials, and they are currently in Delve 33. They do not have any Shaper Orbs, although this may have changed by now. The strategy revolves around the top right of the Atlas, which contains the 3 biggest maps up there. Channel for Humilities, Underground Sea for Density and Alchemist cards, and Armory for Density as well. Examining the Rank 2 team, Dotamite, primarily European. We have RiceQT, Waggle, Garatha, and Carve. RiceQT is currently the carry, as he is a trickster using Winter Orb as well with the tabula. Waggle appears to be a little bit further behind him as a 4-link Stormbrander trickster. Garatha and Carve are both occultists using Bane, but we're not quite sure who will be the curse support and if one will be going off and forming their own, as they both use Bane. Again, they reside within Tier 4 maps, similar to Method. They have 1 of their Uber Lab trials, and they're in Depth 32. They have no Shaper Orbs, and again, their strategy revolves around the top right portion of the Atlas. Examining the Super Team, the Triple Asian Threat, we have Team Avengers with Gucci Pradas, Tai 23, Ah Crying, and Kamel. We do know that Ah Crying is the carry currently with, Ah Crying is the carry. He's level 73, is that correct? I believe he's 77. Right, where's Gucci's level? Gucci is 71, so that's a mistake on my part. But Ah Crying is currently level 73 with the 6-link Winter Orb setup again, as he's the carry. Gucci Pradas is level 71, just behind him as an Inquisitor, assumingly a Stormbrand. Kamel is a 4-link Stormbrand as well as an Elementalist, and Tai 23 is an Occultist at 72. We're not quite sure what their team is doing quite yet, but we do know that they're in Tier 6 maps and above. They have their first Shaper Orbs because of it. They have 1 out of 6 of their Uber Lab trials, and they're in Depth 52, which was quite a large portion of their time spent in Blood Aqueducts. And it's why their Act 10 took a little over 4 hours. I believe it was 4 hours and 10 minutes. The strategy revolves around the top right for the previous mentions, or the things I've mentioned previously as well. Going on to the 4th team, we have Monkey Squad with Ventura, Rathalos, Heshla, and Leaf at rank 4. What we do know, so most of their profiles are private. We do know that Heshla was an Inquisitor using Stormbrand on a 4-link, but that he just unfortunately ripped a few minutes ago, so he's level 1 right now. Leaf died at level 16, but the remaining 3 players are all Occultists, and we do know that the tabula is shared or used between Ventura or Rathalos, and we're not quite sure who. Their Act 10 was a little bit over 4 hours. They currently reside in Tier 4 maps. They have 0 of their Uber Labs, although we're not quite sure if that's true. They're in Depth 57, which is slightly higher than Team Avengers, and again, they don't have any Shaper's Orbs. Once again, their strategy revolves around the top right, being Channel, Underground Sea, and Armory. Examining Team 5, we have Team Grizzly with Birdwings, Odang, Rox PoE, and Max Dallery. Birdwings is the carry, as he's a trickster using Winter Orb on a 6-link. We have Max Dallery on a trickster using a 4-link. And we assume that Odang, the Guardian, is their support character at level 70, and Roxbury is a level 66 Elementalist. And as both of their privates, or they're both of their profiles are private, we're not quite sure what they're using, but we do know that they reside in around tier 3 maps. We're not sure if they have any Uberlab trials, although we don't believe so. Their in depth is 0, and they have no Shaper's Orbs as well. Their strategy revolves around mostly just filling out the Atlas, it seems, although there does seem to be a slight inclination towards the top right. Alright, go ahead, Raindog.
So I'm gonna sort of break down the race so far. So, like during Act 1, Dotem was doing really, really well. They were way ahead of the other teams for such a short act, and but they started having problems with Carve, having some data issues, and having very long log times and stuff like that. And later on, Rice had some Discord issues as well, so he wasn't like able to communicate that well with his team. So they sort of fell off and was replaced by Monkey Business. That did really well during Act 2. But then Leaf had an unfortunate rip, and they sort of got replaced by Method that was doing really fast Act 3. But at Act 3, we could clearly see that there was 5 teams that were separating themselves from the rest of the bunch, and that was the 4 star teams plus Grizzly, which I'm not really that familiar with. And at Act 4, Grizzly was pushing into second place as well.
Yep.
So in Act 5, the Avengers were pulling ahead, and Grizzly and Rice were falling a little bit behind. In Act 7, Crying was 3 levels ahead of all other players. And when they were coming to Blood Aqueduct, Carve still hadn't done his first lab, and Sis was finishing up his second lab. So, Method, we're not quite sure, because we don't have all the information, but of the teams we were able to observe, Method was the first finishing off Gitav in a little more than 3 hours. As the additional information, we have the Hesla rip, which is in addition with Leaf, the 2 most significant rips. But Leaf was able to catch up quite nicely and was like almost on par with Carve. And it seems like Dotem just got their 3rd trial as well. So I'm not quite sure what we want to do now, Tai Tai. Should we try to have a look at what's going on with the compositions of the team? Because that's quite interesting that they have chosen sort of different ascendancies for the different teams.
Yeah, we can go over that. So if we look at Team Method, it's almost like a complete opposite of the Avengers, as Team Method has 1 Elementalist and 3 Inquisitors, whereas the Avengers have 1 Inquisitor, 2 Elementalists, and 1 Occultist. And so I believe the strategy there is that the Avengers probably won't respec anytime soon, except for Gucci, who will most likely be a Mana Guardian. Now Zizaran's group Method may change out, I believe, Nugi to be the support, although we're not quite sure if it's Nugi or Steel Mage, as they're both Inquisitors. Looking on at Dotemite, we're not quite sure what's going on here either, as there's no clear aura support, but there's a curse support. Obviously between the two, with both using Blight and Bane, but we're not quite sure at the moment.
So I was listening a little bit to Rice talking about the 100 race in the Trade League, and he firmly believed that the 2-1-1 strategy was superior to the 1 carry 3 support. So they might be doing either 1 support for each, or trying to do something like at least use 1 of the occultists as a support for the carry, and then maybe just farm with 2 other guys.
Makes sense. Looking at Team Grizzly here, we have a clear support on Odang, we have the clear carry on Murdwings, and now I assume, like you said, maybe these two, Rox PoE at max, will be separate from the group as well. So that'll be a 2-1-1. Right.
Yeah, that seems very reasonable.
Alright.
And it's sort of worth noting as well that it seems like people are really going for the Winter Orb, that they believe that's the fastest XP skill.
Yeah, so Winter Orb is something that I tested out myself, I believe a league ago, like last league. And so I was doing a typical Stormbrand Elementalist run, and I dropped a Tabula. And there's always this guy who's in my chat, and he's like, go Winter Orb, go Winter Orb. And so I was like, I'm not gonna do it, I'm not gonna do it. And I dropped a Tabula, and I was like, you know, I bet with that 6 link to push you over, you know, using increased duration, and there wasn't the channeling skill, but it was like hypothermia at the time. Using those, Winter Orb completely destroyed Stormbrand, even in like tier 1 maps, like all the way through the rest of the leveling process. Winter Orb felt really, really good, but when I tried it in another run on just a 4 link, it felt rather lackluster. And so being able to see that in competitive is actually really cool.
So, what do you think about they're going Bane on Rice's team? They have like 2 people who seem to be maining Bane, and one of them is doing Delve, if I'm not mistaken.
So with that, I believe. So when I tested out Bane myself, the thing with Bane is that it destroys the screen. I mean, it just like one shots packs, but you can clearly tell that because it has no like onslaught support with it, and that it's quite far away from dark arts. Most, if not all of these players were Stormbrand up until recently, so after they completed maybe Blood Aqueducts grinding for a bit, they switched off into Bane and Blight, is what we saw. And so being able to see them bring it out is actually really cool because it's an insanely good skill, as not only does it serve as a curse support, but also as a way to clear up packs.
So, like for the solo self-found 100 race, Rice was going Bane Occultist, and then he transitioned into Death's Oath. But he said that it chose the Bane because he was planning to flare farm. Could it be? Could it be that they're actually trying to like TP him into the Bane character to get all the sulfur nodes and like having more or less as a dedicated delver?
It is possible to see that. I believe with so you no longer get experience if you're far away from the little cart anymore, but we could see him go down into Delve, as I believe Delve will be very instrumental to this push. As we saw with Avengers, they farmed up for quite a long time in Blood Aqueducts, with Gucci staying in their Delve. And so that was actually really interesting to see, as Method opted to push on for an early Act 10, and they got it, you know, an hour faster. But Gucci and the rest of the Avengers, well, primarily just Gucci, they managed to get down to depth 50 before completing the Act 10.
So, just we got a quick update here as well that they just completed their 4th trial as well, Rice's team.
Oh wow!
So they might be able to get the Uber Lab.
I mean,
like within that.
Yeah, it could very well be within the next half an hour. I mean, if you have 4 people farming, then it's actually very quick to get these trials, as it seems like so far everybody is doing their own maps. With typically the people running the top right portion of the atlas just strictly running those really good 3 maps as mentioned, whereas everybody else is sort of filling out the atlas a bit, and this is intended to eventually, once, you know, the person who's in charge of running the top right portion of the atlas, maybe they run channel for a long period of time, they get the, you know, 1 or 2 more tabulas for the group, maybe they farmed underground seas for more alchemies for the group, and it just kind of like funnels everybody else to run the rest of the atlas, and then they can fill in the that person's the remaining person's atlas. So typically right now what we're seeing is the carry running underground seas, channel in Armory, but that may very well change within the next hour or so.
Yeah, maybe we should. I think we have like a few interesting clips. We might get those up on screen, and then we can talk a little more after that.
Oh yeah. All right. I've got some here. All right, which one? You want to start with the Havoc clip? It's just pretty funny.
Sure.
And we can just go down. Here, let me turn the light on really quick. I think that looks much better with the light. We'll start it off. Havoc clip.
I don't have what's done.
Oh, I just sold it.
Okay, no worries. What the fuck? That just happened. Okay. I buy this. I fixed it now. I buy this. This fixes all.
Welcome.
Oh my god, armor scrap. I'm actually triggered, dude. I'm actually kind of mad now. Okay. Okay.
Alright.
Running trial.
So as you can see there, he needed.
Okay.
He thought that in order for his blue-blue-green setup, and so he had a blue-blue-green right here in the ones, and then he ran straight to the armor vendor. Oh wait, no, he picks up the blue-blue-green, re-chromes it.
That just happened.
Wait, did he not see that there was a blue? Wait. He saw that there was a blue-blue-green, and then he went to the armor smith, and he had one as well, and then he didn't realize that he needed an armor scrap. Yeah, Havoc always sounds like he's at a business meeting. Yeah, that was just a really funny clip. Okay. The next one. So this one is just
14 waypoint.
RiceQT.
Okay.
That's the wrong one. There's
14 waypoint.
So RiceQT is taking out all his gems, attempting to craft a +1, and so he's making a topaz ring. And if you didn't know, you can sell a magic topaz ring with an alteration and a magic wand, a topaz ring, and an alteration. You can craft +1 lightning gems. But as you can see here, he got it off the transmute.
14 waypoint.
And chat went
And
over
even
what
got
I was
the
saying for a
cast
little while.
speed as well.
Yeah, you got the cast speed, which is also something really insane to note.
Yeah.
And so that's like, you know, that'll last him for quite a few acts. It's just something a little interesting. On to the next clip. We have Noogie right here.
Phase. Hot phase about to come up.
This is
Wait,
Method's
telling?
first Katava. This is 3 hours and 10 minutes
Don't tell
in.
you yet.
And so every other team is basically farming
tell you
Tiger at
now.
this point.
Throwing. Everybody in.
Method is pushing in very early.
In? I move?
Safe. Yep. Well, not fucking safe, but you know.
Yep.
Kill it.
Oh,
Yeah, we did it.
who needs what? Dropping humilities on the ground.
Phase. Hot phase.
Alright. That's Method's progress. So right here we don't have many clips from the Avengers, as only Crying is streaming, and he muted his stream to be super secret. But we do have an honorable mention from Team Yan.
I guess we have 2 right.
Yes, so we have two rips from the Japanese team. Let me see if I can find the other one.
I think it's just underneath in the Discord.
Oh, you're right. So this one's from Desho, or actually, this is the one from oh, here it is. So here's the first Japanese team rip. This is Barnyang.
さっき確認しに行った。なんか撮ってたら、
Ow.
ここ撮ってなかったですね。さっき
As you can see, he's being chased down by a unique monkey, and he
Ah,
just gets slammed.
あ、
猿
あ
Unfortunately,
マジで？
there's
なんで
not too much you can do here.
ここ撮ってなかったですね。さっき確認しに行った。
You know, Unfortunately, his
Is
random
that
flask
true?
ran out at that exact moment, and he was not able to recuperate enough life. Go ahead.
He had his flame dash open, so if he realized the danger, he might be able to get out, like if you go left there, but I guess he gets stunned.
ここ取ってなかったですね。さっき確認し
Yeah, it looks like he gets stunned, and it's also not really a case where you're like super scared, you know, because you're running around with like full life most of the time. You're not really thinking about your flask all the time. It's not really a situation where you expect to die in, and then you just, you know, there's situations within speedrunning where you just get popped. See here, we have the second honorable mention. So this would be our wildcard region, would be Japan. This is Desho. He's running through Blood Aqueducts. See, a little under 4 hours. It's fully yes, and he just gets stunned, crit, and he dies while
死
logging
ん
in.
だ。
あ、
あ
出てる。出てるな、あれ。
I think it's a really unfortunate rip, as I was really looking forward to seeing exactly the full power of the Japanese team, but it does appear like
死ん
Barnyan
だ。
is re-rolling,
あ、
and
Ah.
the remaining two members are going very strong. Follow or the host follows?
At,
Go
do
ahead.
we have anything more interesting then?
Uh,
So we have like the latest one, the RiceQ almost rip. I guess that could be.
Alright. Yeah, RiceQT, watching RiceQT, this guy falls like on so low.
What is wrong with your
He gets
filter?
like really low. Wow. None as low as that.
What do you
though.
mean? What's wrong with my filter?
I mean, starting from like Act 2 and
Oh,
onwards,
boys, I might
there's
have
been
just
like
dropped like below
3 or
100
4
HP.
times where he
Yikes.
gets to like 10% HP, but that was really close.
That's not. That's
Are you
not
able
good.
to pause it to see how
Oh, yeah, I
low
don't
that
remember
was?
if
yeah.
taking damage
It's
where
super low.
it penetrates.
Alright, let's see. He runs in, it's not like a
Just
super
wrong with
scary
your-
map or anything.
Phil.
He gets to, yeah, about
What is wrong with your
12%
filter?
HP. Let's
Phil.
see. I mean, he like hardly reacts until a second later.
What's wrong with your filter?
It's very difficult to, you know, expect that kind of thing.
What
when
do you
it's
mean?
not
What's
like a
wrong with my
multi-crouch
filter?
Map. Really nothing
Oh boy,
super
boys,
scary on
I
the
might
map
have just
aside
dropped
from
like below
no
100
dodge,
HP.
which it does
Yikes.
appear that Rice's character is building around as he's using the Jade Flask.
That's not.
Right?
Yeah. So regarding the unique drops so far, it seems like the most interesting item is the Piranha unique ring that Sis got.
Yep.
I'm not sure how useful it is. They can probably try to wall it and make a quant
wait.
character. I guess that's maybe a little bit out there. I'm not sure how useful it is.
I think
I just got
they're
the
still
Pariah.
trying to decide on that one, but we should be able to see it in action
No, don't fall.
fairly soon.
Is it useful in any other setup? The +2 to
That's
suck the
good.
gems? Is...
Don't believe so. I mean, I can see it being used for Brand Recall. That is a very, very good setup. As Brand Recall gains some levels, it is more and more, has less and less cooldown. But we could just see it being walled for the white socket. It's very difficult to use rings like this, as in a short term, well, early on in a race, it's very difficult to fix your resists. And jewelry is actually the best way of solving the issue, as it has the resist implicits. And so it's very difficult to replace one of his 2 stones right now, but we may be able to see a white pariah in the near future.
So, regarding other unique items, I didn't really catch that many, but sort of a little bit notable was that Vagel got the Karui ward in Act 3, which is super early, and I believe that gives like 10% movement speed.
Yep.
Which is a nice boost. And they also dropped the 3 Dragon helmet, which could provide some additional defense with the high resist and some freezing ability for the Stormbrands.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not sure if anybody actually has started using that.
I don't believe so either. Okay, that sounds good to me. Anything else you want to bring up?
So I'm not sure, like, if there's any in the chat that want us to discuss something or have any questions or
Yeah.
stuff like that.
If you guys have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
one thing that I sort of an observation is that there are. I'm so bad with the name. The Rice's team that has this strange name. Yeah, they were doing a really early merciless lab as well, and they did it together as a team. All the earlier labs they did by themselves, but the merciless lab they were sort of pulling together to enchant some really nice boots that Rice have. So trying to get the leech for the winter orb.
Does make sense. I believe Team Avengers did the same thing. Well, actually, no. What happened was Crying was attempting to do his lab, and so everybody was doing their merciless lab on their own. And Crying has these really good boots, and so he disconnected in one. And Ty23 actually joined him for his lab, and like you said, it was for the enchant on the boots. So that's a really interesting strategy that I haven't honestly seen before this race in a group setting. Typically people do it on their own, especially in a 4-player party like this. So 2 people will split up and they'll do it at separate times. We saw earlier with Method, in Act 4 is the opportune time for them to split up. Typically they would take 2 to go into Labyrinth, and then they would continue on, kill Comb and Duresso, and then they would switch places. And so when the other side of the team would go kill Comb after getting the waypoint and everything, and then they would the others would go and kill Lab, and around the time when they complete their normal Labyrinth would be around the time that the team is finished gathering all the parts from Malachi. And if you didn't know, in Act 4 Malachi, you don't need all the parts to be able to teleport into the room. You can just teleport straight there. And so it was this perfect lineup of everybody being able to complete their normal Labyrinth and also being able to teleport into normal Malachi with one additional person forming.
I think another advantage of doing the lab together was that Carve was so far behind, so sort of giving him his third labyrinth for free would probably be a big benefit to him as well.
Yeah, so Merciless Lab is at level 68, and pretty much everybody was around there, like 67 or so. And so Carve, as you can see here, is around level 62, and so that's very difficult as your gems haven't quite leveled up enough yet. And it was just super helpful for him to be able to get in there, as he's fairly far behind the rest of the group, as he's had a lot of disconnecting problems. And fortunately, they're being fixed now, and I believe his stream is live.
Okay, yeah. He was talking about changing out his SSD or something. I believe a lot of people have had some problems lately, especially with betrayal encounters and lags. So,
alright. It doesn't appear to be any questions this time around. Do you have anything else to add?
Nothing at the moment. I guess we could try to get a better grip on sort of the Atlas strategies and on the different teams, because sort of the first part is sort of rushing and getting into maps and setting everything up, and then we will see if they're able to do something nice. I find it kind of surprising that we haven't seen any 5 links so far. Yeah,
we haven't seen any, and I think that's fairly normal in like a solo race. But the fact that there are at least 20, very competitive racers right now who haven't found a single 5 link among them is very surprising, to say the least. Typically at this point you would find at least one. At least that's what I would expect, but we haven't seen anything so far. So maybe this will change, and it might determine, if someone will use a Tabula or the 5 link if they're the carry. So that's an interesting development that may take place.
So, would you expect the carry, the people playing the 6 link Winter Orb, to really pull ahead of the rest of the team, or would they be able to sort of keep up?
So they'll pull ahead, but not by a large margin. In a lot of these groups, you have players who are really good at mapping, and they've shown themselves time and time again that they're just slightly faster than everybody else. For example, we have Zizrin here, who has all the resources being fueled into him, so of course he's going to pull up ahead. Pretty much everybody on this team is fairly even in mapping. We have RiceQT, who also has, one of the best mappings that I've seen. And then we have Crying here, who has shown time and time again that he can get consistent rank 1s. So that's where most of their resources are being poured into. And I don't know too much about the other teams, although I believe Leaf was intended to be the carry. He is a little bit further behind. And as far as Team Grizzly goes, I'm not quite sure how well they perform, but it does appear like Birdwings is taking up the mantle very well.
So I'm looking at the live update on the individual XP so far, and it looks like Ciceron is actually outpacing Rice, even at one level higher. He's doing at level 79, he's doing 330 million XP per hour, and Rice is 78, doing 280. So if they're able to keep up that pace, they might be able to separate themselves, because Ciceron famously doesn't sleep. So,
That's true. Although I do believe Team Method are going to sleep at some point. There is a little bit of discourse between the team, as Havoc has stated before that he actually really enjoys sleep, and he thinks that one of the best strategies you can do is to play for 20 hours and then go to sleep for maybe like 6 or so, and then you play for another 20, and maybe it'll change on day 1 or the last push, but staying up super late also has its detriments, and so I believe Team Grizzly has stated that they intend to play for the entire weekend, basically. Well, maybe not like a 60-hour kind of thing, but they do intend on playing quite a lot this weekend, and so we might see an all-nighter from that team. It will be interesting to see, as being tired allows for more rips and stuff. But what I was saying with Team Method is that Noogie wants to push on for a very long time as well, similar to Team Grizzly. So we're not quite sure what we're going to see from those teams, but we do know that it will be interesting.
So another thing that is, so I see the live update now. So earlier it was Ciceron followed by RiceQT and Crying. No, actually Havoc has passed Crying. And he's also doing 365 million per hour. So it looks like Method is really having a good run. Maybe we should have a look at the gear of some of the characters. We could perhaps do Ciceron, Rice, Havoc.
Alright, yeah, we can look at the top 3
and
here.
Crying.
Yeah. Rise, Havoc. Let's get those up on screen. So here we have Zizarin. He's using a Tabula with the 6-link Winter Orb setup here. Using Winter Orb, increased duration, greater multiple projectiles, infused channeling, which is a new skill introduced this patch, faster casting, and Ice Bite. His helmet has some life and resists. He's using 2 scepters, which is interesting to find. Although I believe that is because one of them is a sandbar scepter, and so sandbar scepters are able to penetrate 6% of elemental resistances. And it is probably the main reason why they're focusing on using scepters at the moment.
Oh, that is a really nice scepter, though. It has the lightning damage, cast speed, critical, and the cold damage.
Wow, I didn't even notice the cast speed was so up there. Yeah, that's really good. Looking at the amulet, that's a lot of life. A little bit of cast speed is nice, but if you need the resistances, you would craft that on as well. That's a pretty nice amulet. Probably will see it for a few more days. Wow, that ring is really, really good. 67 life and quite a lot of resistances. What do you make of this ring?
So, like, regarding the Winter Orb and cast speed, there was like a discussion earlier about if it only affects the charging of Winter Orb, or if it affects both the charging and the firing of the projectiles. And they tested it, and it seemed like it affects both. So cast speed is super good on Winter Orb. It allows you to get the maximum stacks faster and allows you to deal more damage.
I honestly didn't even know that.
So
that's very nice. Going on with the rest of the gear, we have the other ring at 58 life and 30% res. So this is a nice ring, but it's not quite as permanent as the other one. The other one will most likely stay here until well into the 90s, in my opinion. Looking at the belt, we have a lot of life and quite a bit of resists, with a lot of strength as well. So his strength requirement really helps him be able to equip things like the Sandbar Scepter, There's a fairly high strength requirement of 121, and if he wants to equip strength gear, well, he can because of these two items: the 2-stone ring and his heavy belt. Looking at his gloves, he has really nice.
And it's
Sorry, go ahead.
and the strength provides life as well, right? It's 62 strength. That's 31 more life. That's
Yes.
That's like 124 life on that belt. That's a fuck tons of life.
Yeah, it's a really nice belt, but the resistors are sort of low, and so on most of your pieces, you just want as high of life as possible, and then you want to get as much resist as possible. And so in a lot of cases, what you'll have to do is sacrifice quite a bit of resist for life, and so that's what you see with this belt here. But things like belt and your rings are spaces where you really, really want to push out that extra life and resistances, and primarily the resists. Looking at the gloves, we have 89 life and some crafted res, so these are really good gloves. An important thing to note is that it's at least 3 blue, so that's for his Flame Dash, Faster Casting, and Arcane Surge setup. This is really important as it gets around everywhere. Looking at his flasks, he has a Bubbling Divine Life Flask of Grounding, so the important thing to take away here is that it's an instant life flask of some sort, because the way that damage works in this game is you're not going to be surrounded by skeletons, you know, they're hitting you, they're slowly, you know, whittling your life down. It's going to happen like you're gonna pop. And so being able to prevent yourself from dying if you're gonna, from popping, you know, maybe taking half your health and then the other half, Bubbling Divine Life Flask can save you, like we saw with the Rise clip. The rest of the flasks, we have a Sulfur Flask here of Warding. It's not notable for the prefix. The Granite Flask of Staunching. It's really good for the extra armor. And so the Granite Flask is actually very important. You can get this from Act 7 onwards, and 3000 life actually matters a lot more, as you don't have like any space that you can realistically get life on. If you examine his gear right now, he has like 126 armor from his boots, and you know, maybe some more from some other sources. But as far as pure physical damage mitigation goes, this Granite Flask provides him with so much mitigation. The Silver Flask is just of heat. It's a little interesting that he's not running his Herald of Ice anywhere with Onslaught. Instead, he's opted to go Herald of Ice, Ink AoE, and Innervate. And then for his Herald of Thunder, he's using Curse on Hit and Warlord's Mark, which is a very defensive, very smart setup. You get the endurance charges this way, as well as being able to leech. And then his
the Innervate.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, the Innervate spell recently got buffed, and it deals a lot of damage now. So it sort of works as a like 6.5 link for his Winter Orb most of the time.
Yeah, so I actually tested out Innervate myself in quite a few runs and did a little bit of POB, and it showed that using Innervate in just my Herald of Ice setup, I was able to gain like 12% more damage in most cases with my Stormbrand, but you know, it might be a little bit more or less depending on how juiced up your Winter Orb is. We can see that his Quicksilver Flask is of Adrenaline, and ideally what he would want would be Alchemist Quicksilver Flask of Adrenaline, so that he can move the fastest. Here's what his passive tree looks like at level 80. So he's got the duration nodes, primarily just going for life, cast speed, damage, and as you can see, the full Dark Arts wheel. Anything else you want to note about Zizern's tree?
So something that is sort of nice-ish is that when you have access to no unique flask, you get all the utility. So you can like see he has the anti-freeze, the anti-curse, the anti-bleed, everything. So he would probably like to have. They might like get an at-series flask or something, because that would be a lot of damage for him eventually.
Yep. Then one thing I want to note with the tree is that it's super close to a lot of dual nodes, and this is one of the primary benefits of going something like this. Is you can see that he is 1 point away from a jewel socket here. No, 1 point away from a jewel socket here. He is 2 points away from one over here, and then if he wants to go out of his way, he can get this one for 3 points, and you can get this one for 3 points. And so that scales up into the end game pretty well, considering that they will most likely want to start using jewels around level 90 or so. Alright.
What would be the reason why they aren't using gems like hypothermia and stuff? That seems like it's really strong most of the time.
So I do agree that hypothermia is a really good gem, but infused channeling is like far too broken to pass it up at the moment. And then the other ones are like mandatory. Like you have to run Winter Orb with greater multiple projectiles. Increased duration and faster casting both increase your speed because you're not sitting there casting it as much or for nearly as long. And then Ice Bite basically is that chance to freeze, and so that's mandatory as well. And so pretty much every gem that you see here is fairly locked in place. The only ones you might want to change out would be like Infused Channeling for Hypothermia, but Hypothermia doesn't give quite as much damage as Infused Channeling, and Infused Channeling actually makes it so you take less physical damage as you're standing still, and so you'll notice that he's quite a bit tankier when you're sitting there channeling it up. Alright, anything else you want to note about Zizern's profile?
No, that seems well covered. I guess a lot of the same things will apply to RiceQT's profile as well. It would be interesting to note how they are doing things differently.
So right off the bat, I can pretty much bet that he's using Herald Device with Onslaught. Yep, there it is in his gloves. And he's also using Curse on Hit Warlord's Mark with his Herald Device. And the reason why I could tell that is because RiceQT is not using the Silver Flask. He's using a Jade Flask of Staunching. So again, you'll see some of the immunities here, you know, Curse immunity, Bleed immunity, Freeze immunity. Those are the big three that you want, and then of Adrenaline on your flask. Examining the gear, you know, it's a fairly standard high damage wand. Surprisingly, he didn't put on cast speed, so I don't think it has the extra space. What is interesting here is that he opted for a shield, as it has nearly 80% resistances and a lot of crit. Wow. That is a really nice shield. So it's cases like these where you want to consider, like, do I want to go Dark Arts? And in this case, he did not, as he dropped the shield, but I don't know if he was going to go Dark Arts in the first place. So this just seems like a really, really good pickup for him.
But you can still go Dark Arts though, like, because you're still benefiting from the reduced cooldown and the movement speed, even though you're not dual wielding.
Yes, I would agree with that for progressing through the axe, as Flame Dash is like very, very strong. But in the end game with Winter Orb, what you want to do is charge it up to 10, and then you phase run through with your Alchemist Quicksilver Flask of Adrenaline. And so you don't really want to be flame dashing around quite as much as you do in the early game. And so that's why we don't see him pick up these cooldown recovery nodes here, because it would be just too far out of his way. And as you can see on his tree, he's not quite at the duration nodes. Although something interesting about RiceQT's tree is that he's already going crit. I think a large part of that is due to the shield. Alright, moving on. Again, he has the Tabula. This time he's using Winter Orb, increased duration, increased critical strikes, infused channeling, GMP, and cold penetration. So he swapped out infused channeling, or swapped out faster casting for increased critical strikes. Increased critical strikes add to the base amount of crit. And he's using cold penetration instead of Ice Bite, which is fairly interesting as, you know, it doesn't seem like RiceQT is penetrating resist in any other way besides this, and so it makes sense.
So a quick update here. You should look in the Discord and link the latest clip, because that might change stuff really up. If they're able to utilize the item that just dropped for Cicerin.
Right now, I think.
Yeah, I'll bring it up right here.
Oh, Queen of the Forest!
Yo, Pog!
Holy shit!
Dude!
Still needs that first build! Well, I think Havoc can be up right now, I think.
So, for those who didn't catch that, it was the Queen of the Forest. So if they're able to get this evasion high enough, we can really go zoom with that.
Yeah, so that'll be a really nice chess piece to use. The issue with that is that if we go back to Zizzarin's profile and we see that he's using 3 blue, 1 red, and 2 green, it'll be very difficult for him to get 4 off colors on that Queen of the Forest.
I've seen, like, in this league, I've seen quite a bit of tricksters using that chess piece.
Yeah, so...
Because it's like, I think it's like 400 ES, roughly, if it's reasonably rolled. So, but Ciceron is, of course, not able to reroll as a trickster, so...
Right.
They might not be able to utilize it, even though it's a very powerful drop.
Yeah, we'll see if they decide to bring it on the next one. I'm just going over the gear quickly.
A little bit, like if you linger a little more on the winter. So what I find really interesting is that they have sort of Sis is not using increased duration, right?
So Ziz and
anyway,
Rise
okay,
are
he's
both
using increased duration. Sorry, but what is sort of strange here? Well, not strange, but Ciceron is prioritizing casting speed, like significantly more than RiceQT. So I was looking at the POB, and the hit rate of Sis's Winter Orb is almost 4, and the Rise is 2.
So that's like.
But they have.
So it's like he's just hitting twice as often as Rise is at full stats.
Yeah, but Rise is hitting almost twice as hard as Sis. Sis has a little more DPS, like 20% more, but almost all of that comes from his. So they sort of. I'm not sure. I'm guessing if your damage is sufficient, it's better to have a lot of hits.
Especially as Elementalist. One thing with Elementalist is with Beacon of Ruin, he wants to freeze the whole screen as quickly as possible, or at least one monster, so that he stays super safe as the freeze will proliferate onto the other nearby enemies, and so he'll be doing more damage to those, and then chilling them at least, and so he'll be a lot safer because of that.
Yeah.
Alright. Going on with the rest of RiceQT's gear, I forgot to mention the Lightning Spire Trap setup. And so he's using, RiceQT's using Lightning Spire Trap, Lightning Penetration, Added Lightning, and Trap and Damage support. This is a fairly standard setup. I believe Zizzarin's running Lightning Spire Trap, Elemental Focus, Control Destruction, and Trap and Mind Damage. So you can tell that instead of, he's swapped out 2 of the support gems here, but I don't believe they make that much of a difference. I could be wrong though. Looking at, sorry, go ahead.
I think they're fairly equivalent. There's like, I guess for an elementalist, you don't. No, he's not elementalist, but like you might get some extra damage from the shock, and like depending on what skills you're using. Apparently, Conk effect isn't that good on Lightning Spire Trap due to some other mechanics.
Yep.
Even though it gives good numbers in POB, but. I think they probably researched this ahead and know what they're doing. But I don't think it matters that much. It's probably like a few percentage here and there.
Yeah. So, like the thing with shocking is that with the Winter Orb setup, because Zizzarin is an Elementalist, he's able to shock with Winter Orb regardless. And so he's basically always shocking them, even though the Elemental Focus isn't on. Or is on the Lightning Spire Trap and he can't shock them, he is able to do that through his main skill, which will always be taken. Same thing with Stormbrand. As an Elementalist, it's just perfectly fine to go Elemental Focus, whereas you can see RiceQT has opted for the Lightning Penetration. Looking over the gear quickly, we have just gear pieces with life and resistances, same as before. Anything super notable, we'll note over it. You can see here that RiceQT has a cast when damage taken, increased duration, immortal call, and Warlord's Mark setup. So that means that instead of getting it through his Herald of Thunder like Ziz, he's getting on both Herald of Ice and on his cast when damage taken. That's pretty interesting. As far as his other ring goes, it's just more life and resistances, and same with his amulet. Looking at his passive tree here, you can see that RiceQT has not invested quite as much into cast speed, like you said, but we can see that he spent a significant amount of points focusing on the crit on the tree. So you can see Doomcast up here, Throat Seeker over here, Snow Forged here, Assassination here instead of Elemental Focus. That's a very interesting choice to go super early, but like I said, we also have Annihilation up here. I believe that's primarily because of the shield that he has. Anything else you'd like to note about RiceQT?
So it seems like he has invested more heavily into the Mind Over Matter setup. He has picked up the nodes behind Mind Over Matter, which Sis hasn't. He has just picked up the first one. And I would imagine that he has more unreserved mana as well. He has like 1,000 unreserved mana on his character, together with almost 3.5k. So that's a reasonable survivability if we compare that to Sis, who is famous for dying. He has 4,000 life, so he has more life. And he has only 300 unreserved mana. So both of them are perhaps fairly similar in that they're just. I guess the trickster in general provide much more survivability than the.
Yeah. Speaking of survivability, so RiceQT most likely picked up Swift Killer for his normal lab, and then he went straight into Ghost Dance and Escape Artist, which provides him with a lot of evasion and energy shield. It also gives him quite a bit of attack speed, stun immunity, chance to dodge spells. And so you can see that with Rise's full Mind Over Matter setup, as Raindog mentioned, he's super defensive here, as well as being very, very quick due to the Trickster ascendancy.
And also a thing worth noting about Sisses is that the Warlords, like with the super high impact, the fast Winter Orb, and the Warlord's Mark is getting a lot of regeneration all the time.
Yep.
But this is a little bit slower for Rice.
Going over Ziz's ascendancy really quick, it would just be Shaper of Desolation, Beacon of Ruin, and Pendulum. Alright. Ready to go on to Havoc here?
Yeah, we could do Havoc, because I find it kind of baffling that he's able to keep up, right? Because he's not the carry of the team, probably. So that he's able to get more XP than Rice, that's kind of impressive. So let's see what he's up to.
Yeah, sure. So in my opinion, Havoc is like one of the best racers in the moment. And he might actually be the carry, whereas they need maybe they need levels on Scissorin so he can push maps or farm in a certain way. And so we're not quite sure what their roles will be at the moment, but we do have Havoc here with a Stormbrand setup using increased critical strikes, faster casting and Ice Bite, and then maybe due to his ascendancy over here being Righteous Providence. So that's a very crit heavy ascendant, and so the reason why he doesn't go crit up front, just to talk about his ascendancy really quick, is that he needs to go Sanctuary and Pious Path. And so with these two nodes, what it means is that whenever you cast a spell, and so whether this be stopping for Flame Dash, stopping to cast Stormbrand, or channeling Winter Orb, whatever it may be, you're gonna get Consecrated Ground from Sanctuary, so this is really good early on, very noticeable, it's pretty nice. And then your Cruel Lab is when it really, really pops off, because you get Consecrated Ground for 4 seconds, and so basically what this means is that you permanently have Consecrated Ground, or the effects of it, and it increases your energy shield recharge by 200, your casting and attack speed are increased by 20%, and you also have immunity to ailment effects. And so we might see that on his flasks here in a moment. As well as that, he's starting to go into crit, So I imagine after Righteous Providence, he'll go into Inevitable Judgment, and that just means that he will ignore critical resistances so long as he either crits or just a portion of the resist as he doesn't crit.
So another thing that is super nice with that is when you get the immunity to elements. So basically, if you ever gets frozen, you just stop up, you get consecrated ground, and it gets removed.
Yep.
So you're basically freeze immune. I guess not for channeling spells, you probably get interrupted. But
I mean,
when he picks up that ascendancy, wouldn't I've seen a lot of people go pathing up to Eldritch Battery so they can reserve all their mana. Do you believe we would start doing that, or just?
I don't think we'll see that, but it is a possibility as the game starts going on. Alright. Typically with Eldritch Battery, you would pair it with the Energy Shield Recharge node over here, Light Eater. You could also go the one down here for 4 points, I believe it is. Oh no, it's another 3, Ethereal Feast. And so Eldritch Battery makes it so your Energy Shield becomes your mana, and you would use that for spells, and so you can reserve all of your mana. You can get 1 or 2 of these nodes, and then you basically have mana leech. So I don't think we're going to see that anytime soon, but
I guess he has to sacrifice the survivability he gets from Mind Over Matter a little bit, so it's like a more offensive way of playing.
Yep. And we can see that he's crit as well, going Arcane Potency. He's got the Assassination over here. I mean, he's probably pathing towards Throat Seeker. Overall, it's looked like he's trying to go crit into the endgame, and so crit actually scales really, really well into endgame. As well as the Shaman's Dominion, which is something we haven't seen because nobody else is using brands.
So from his path of building, I can see that he's leveling a lot of Winter Orbs. So do you think that's for him to respec into, or just he's leveling them for like the level 21 quality 20 gem for Sis?
I think he's been doing both. I think maybe we'll see both of them running Winter Orb, but it's definitely for the level 21 there. Level 21 is a big damage upgrade from level 20.
So yeah, so he might, like as you said, Winter Orb felt sort of shitty on the 4 link, right? So
Yep.
he might just want to wait until they get the 5 or 6 link before specking into that and using it for mapping.
And so, looking at Havoc's flasks here, he's got a Silver Flask, a Quicksilver Flask of Adrenaline, a Diamond Flask of Staunching, and he's got a Granite Flask of Warding, as well as a Seething Hollowed Flask. And so this is something to note as well, is that although a level 60 flask, like Instant Life Flask, is significantly better, you'll see him use level 42 here because he hasn't been able to acquire the level 60 for himself yet. As you can see, Zizaran's using it. And so, in a racing situation, or if you're just trying to go fast on League Start, it is perfectly viable to just use the Hollowed Flask, as it will restore quite a bit of health as well. So you can see that, if you use up 3 of these flasks, because you're not just going to be clicking this throughout the map, you're going to be using this, like, spam clicking on it as whenever you get low in a map. And so that's still, close to 2,000 life. Even though it's not quite 3,500 life, in a lot of times that 2,000 life that the level 42 flask can provide you, it's very, very nice. Quickly going over his gear, he's got, some cast speed on wands, dark arts, again with the flame dash setup, a little bit of cast speed here, super important to note. He's got some life and resists on his rings, his amulet, belt, pretty much everywhere you want life and resist. And so this is an interesting pair of boots, as with a roll of 79 life and 32 cold res, those are really, really good boots, and so he was willing to fork over, I believe it's the 2 chaos and a scour. Well, if you have to get rid of something, but it's 2 chaos to craft on movement speed, and so he opted to do that with, again, the Herald of Ice, Ice Bite, and Innervate setup. It's very popular. Over here, he has cast when damage taken, conductivity, Warlord's Mark and Immortal Call, and you can tell that his cast when damage taken is very low level, and so his conductivity actually won't affect them at all unless he casts it himself. And so the purpose of this setup is so that whenever he runs into a boss, he can cast conductivity, and if he were to take damage, he would do a cast when damage taken Warlord's Mark, and it would keep him nice and safe. Going on
So,
to...
like,
Sorry, go ahead.
from what I gather so far, it looks like Ciceron's gear has been prioritized higher than Havoc's gear.
Yep.
It's like his wand was... Ciceron's wand was crazy, right? That would have been so good with all the critical strike and stuff for Havoc as well.
Yeah,
it seems like...
the Sandbar Scepter would actually be a little bit better on Havoc right now, as he's not penetrating too much resist. But we can see that with this passive tree, Havoc over here has picked up Divine Judgment. And something important to note is that this node gives you elemental penetration, while this minor one does not. So I see a lot of people taking this one up above, myself included in some cases, at least until I learned this. And so it's important to take this node and this node, as you get the 5% penetration from there. Like you said, that crit scepter would be really, really good. You know, getting crit on some pieces of gear, like the wands primarily, would be really, really good. And so it does seem like we're seeing a pretty big push for the gear to go on towards Zizaran. Going on to the Lightning Spire Trap setup, we have Lightning Spire Trap, Control Destruction, Elemental Focus, and added Lightning. So it's interesting to see here that he doesn't quite have the Trap and Mind damage support. Sorry to cut you off earlier, what were you trying to say?
No, nothing. It's
Alright.
Continue.
I was gonna ask, do you have a POV of that?
The damage on the
yeah.
lightning spell? Sure. So it averages about 12,400.
And then could we compare that to, say, like Zizaran's or RiceQT's?
Yeah, I would think I should be able to.
Alright.
I'm assuming all of them have taken a Lyra then.
Yes, so all crit players will take a Lyra, and even most non-crit players will take a Lyra. Caitlyn is fairly unpopular, not really used at all, and Oak is pretty unpopular, not really used at all. And so it's pretty much between the big two, a Lyra and Kill All for the 2 passive points. And so all of these players, I'm assuming in the race, are help a Lyra, although you might see some of the supports with Kill All.
I'm not confident that I've checked all the boxes, that everything is the way it's supposed to be. Let's flask active.
Okay.
Yeah, but if you're disregarding shock, or would all of them have shock?
Yes.
Okay, so let's check that box. Shock. So, then Rice's Lightning Spire is about 15k. Ciceron's is about 18, and Havoc's would be like 21.
Oh, okay.
So he seems to have a better single target than the other guys.
Alright. Thank you. Anything else you want to talk about with Havoc?
No, I think we can jump ahead and see if crying what the other team is up to. You said that they're being more secretive, right? We might not have that.
Yeah, so Crying has actually had his profile on private the whole time. But just watching his stream, he's got pretty comparable gear to Zizaran with the movement speed boots, really good life gloves, pretty much everything that you see here. One interesting thing is I don't quite see everybody funneling gear into him, and so maybe it's the same case for Zizaran, but it does appear like the carry of most groups has very, very good gear.
So a thing that's worth noting is that Grizzly has passed Havoc on 3rd place, and it seems to be really popping off.
Check it out.
So the Afro
Yeah.
He might have an open. I think he is the only one that has the open profile, right?
No, he set it to private. Fortunately.
Oh yeah, it's yeah. One other guy in their team has open profile. I think we could probably we can watch then their rip Noogie clip and call it a day.
Yeah.
And then we'll. When are we coming back?
11 hours from now. So that
11
will be-
hours.
Yep.
Yeah, you should probably just post that as we're ending the stream so people know when we're coming
Okay.
back.
Thank you. And so here's the near rip for Nugian. He's the one pushing their delve at the moment. You can see that his light radius is very, very low. And ow.
Fuck.
And he goes to pick up the fusing. I don't even quite know what goes on there.
Teleporting.
Actually, there. Oh, he gets hit by the crystals and everything.
Fuck. Oh my god, I nearly died.
Something interesting to note here about Nuki is that he's leveling up a bunch of
you're
storm
not in the
grants,
group.
and so that'll be for the level 21 as well.
Teleporting.
Wow.
Oh, what
So,
the fuck?
on the previous one, at least the one of the Sis's like boss killers, quote unquote, was using Stormbrand up to doing the miniature and stuff like that.
Yep.
So they might be thinking about utilizing Stormbrand all the way.
Yeah. Thanks.
Teleporting.
I think we might see that again. That'd be interesting to see. But we won't really know until next time. So make sure to check us out then. All right. Bye everyone.
Yeah.
See you in almost 12 hours. 11.
You're not in the group.
Bye.
Teleporting.